Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. We chat about leadership and mindset on Monday Mindset, travel and the travel business on Wanderlust Wednesday, and sports on Fanatic Friday. You can plan each episode to be between 20 to 30 minutes in length. Please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win. Spread the word, give us feedback, share ideas. You got things you want us to say on air, let us know. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe not, but either way, you can let us know. And today's episode is sponsored by Nick Menard and Associates with Dream Vacations. Thank you, Nick Menard.
Hello, winners.
Hello, winners. And here we are, the final Monday Mindset of 2024 and our 40th episode.
Wow.
4-0.
Time flies. I think it's necessary for us to cheer.
I agree. So winners, in the spirit of healthy resolutions, this is a smoothie. But cheers to all of you winners to 2024 for helping us launch a dream, which has been a fantastic journey and really excited to build upon that. And thank you to my friend Nick Menard for all that you've done and all we've experienced this past year. So we'll start off with some cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, strawberry, so tasty. All right. So, in the spirit of New Year's coming up in a couple days, why not talk about leadership resolutions and mindset resolutions, right?
That's
like it's always a good time to reflect and think about what do you want to build upon and iterate in the next year. So, when you're thinking about resolutions, what are some of the things that are coming on top of mind for you?
Wow. Well, a lot. A lot, definitely. I mean, we can talk about what we discussed last week, feedback.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely one that we can always improve upon.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I like to bring up today, it's really like the power of delegation.
Mm-hmm.
It has for some negative connotation, as is the lazy way to lead, but I think it's all the opposite. It's the trust way to lead. You trust your peers, your teammates, your partner to actually be able to deliver on something on a better way that you personally can. That's one way to see it, or a different way to deliver, which we know each person will take any kind of information, training, coaching a different way. And we are not robots. We will be able to deliver a couple of different ways, but other people may be better than us, and we need to be totally confident, vulnerable to admit it. Some people will do a better job on certain topic than we do. We cannot be the specialist of all trades.
Right.
And I think it's important to be able to delegate. But again, there are ways to do it. There are technique to do it, the way to communicate it as well. But we're going to discuss probably a little bit more about that as well. What about you?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things, and this goes back to Tim Ferriss, who I know we both enjoy, and he talks about having not just focusing on a to-do list, but a not to-do list. So in the spirit of that, I think one of the resolutions is, again, how do you have less meetings?
Oh,
so I'll chat a little bit more about that one, and I have some thoughts to share, including how I'm going to try to even build upon what I've already been focused on in terms of having less internal meetings.
Wow. Well, you know me, Will, and for those who know me, do you know that I'm probably the person decline the most meeting in every kind of business I'm at, because I'm more about action than talking about it. I do believe that some meetings are important to have, but I do believe that definitely corporate meetings are there to fit the calendar. And I think that we all have a duty, like you mentioned last week, fiduciary duty.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm learning English while I'm doing this podcast.
Hey, man, so this is your third language. I'm still trying to get English down, so you're ahead.
So we have a duty to really be able to do the best job we possibly can, and I don't believe that putting as many meetings as possible makes us better leader, better individual contributor, better anyway, anything. So yeah, for me as an individual contributor, your focus should be your client. That's number one. I'm not saying that you don't have other meetings to have, but that should be the number one priority. As a leader, your people are your clients. So that should be your number one priority. And if you do that right, usually you will be recognized, you will be successful, you will have a very successful year. And I think that's the most important. Now, we will have meeting, some will be mandatory, but try to never forget that coaching as a leader is a number one. And so I love the fact that you bring that up, because I could have bring that up as well. So that's great.
Yeah. And I think for those of our winners, our listeners who have been truly loyal to Two for the Win and have listened to every podcast, I reflect back to one of our very first episodes, and your definition of leadership were those people who are able to cultivate leaders. And so when you're thinking about delegation, going back to your resolution, maybe you can expand a little bit more about that, about how, like you were talking about the paradigm and how you think about delegating. And it's really about skill enablement and capability enablement at its core. But maybe you have a different take, or you want to build upon that take.
Absolutely. No, I love that. So yeah, as a leader, my goal is not to create a habit of having people in the team who will be on the same position for a long period of years. I mean, I'm not interested to create little, I don't know how to give an analogy for that, but people who will be doing the same thing great way for a long time. I want them to find a purpose for what's next for them. And that's how I feel like I did my job. And I always share that with my VP at the end of the year. It's always, I'm successful because I was able to elevate people in my team to whatever it's next, whatever their dreams are. That's how I call success. Not we raise by 1.2% or or target or something like that. I mean, yeah, it's great. We need to do that, but it's not something that I feel like power, like I get power from this. I feel more powerful about my ability to actually promote people. So yes, for me, it's all about, I mentioned the first couple of episodes, definitional leader is creating other leader. Until you create a leader, I don't think that your title should be a leader, even though I don't like the word title neither, but you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. But for me, it's not always about leadership. Like when you are in an organization, it can be so many things. But for me, it's important to delegate to help my people. And I can talk to people from other departments in something I feel strongly about, and I maybe have some track record that are positive, and I would always jump to help anyone. You are the definition of a fantastic human leader. Will, anybody who knows you knows that. And I never heard you say no to talk to someone who have aspiration for leadership. And I heard you even say in private, this is my favorite part about being a leader, is to inspire other people and then maybe see them grow. Nothing to do with my BU maybe.
Yeah, right.
But I see them grow and I look back and like, oh my God, I remember you talked to me 5 years ago when you were an individual contributor. Now you're a director, a VP, or whatever it may be. And I'm the same way. I love that. I love to see the growth within the organization. So that's definitely something that's dear to my heart and something that I try to portray, and I try to pass the message to others so they can have the same aspiration and going from there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, we have an inside joke, which I won't repeat on here, but when we call somebody who does like a lot of delegation, it's just because they're trying to get out of work, and we have a name for that, but we won't repeat that here. It's somebody's name, which is why. But anyway, but it's a totally different thing, to your point. If you're working on skill-based individual development plans, and I don't care if you got one employee, if you got 100 or 1,000, part of the way that you can augment your business is, are you augmenting the skills and honing the professional development of your teammates? If you do that, usually good things happen, right? But building upon that, I think what's important and what you're alluding to here is if there's certain skills that they need to cultivate, part of delegation would be, aligning some of those tasks, exposure, experience opportunities, whatever it is that fits the IDP so that they can grow. So that, one of the things I talk about to people, and, sometimes they come to me and they're like, well, I want a specific role. And, it's always a little bit nails on the chalkboard to me, because it's like, focus on your skills, because roles change, titles change. But if you focus on the skills and align your strengths with roles that come open, you get much more benefit. And I think if they focus on their skill development, and you're delegating things to them that fits within that construct, if you will, it helps your workload balance. It gives them growth opportunities, ideally makes them stronger, better performer, and you can focus on other things as a leader that may be more of a higher and best use. So it's a win-win all the way around.
No, 100%. It's never, you never have to think, oh, I may need to jump in. Maybe I'm not 100% qualified to answer or to coach that person about this topic, but I know some of it and I'm free. So I want to do it myself. That's the wrong approach. The best approach is, even though I know some of it, if you know someone who is better qualified to coach or to help your associates or your leaders about a specific subject they need, always think about them instead of thinking about what you feel you should be doing, because you are free, you have time. And I think that's something I hear a lot in life in general, and in different business I was part of. It's like, well, I had time, so I did it. Well, it's not in the benefits of your team then. It's what you think is best for you. If you lack qualification or lack tools to be better at giving that specific training or talk about a specific topic, find what you need with people who are more qualified than you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you will have more and more tools and more ability to learn and give back.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, and sometimes I have people coming with things that I feel like I'm pretty qualified with, but I know another person who is as qualified as me, but would speak the language of the person better than I would. So the progress of that person within that topic will elevate a lot faster if they talk to X instead of talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So why would I feel the need to be the person who helped that person when I know someone else will be better for the communication piece on that level? And so stop thinking about yourself, what you can actually deliver, but think about what would be the best for that person at that moment.
Yeah, totally agree. And there's a label, so to speak, for that kind of concept called the connector manager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you able to connect people with other people? Not only helps augment their brand and also hear different perspectives. And like you're saying, maybe they're presented in a different way that resonates with them better. But it also gives them exposure to diverse thought, which is always a good thing. Take what you like, leave the rest. Doesn't mean just because somebody has an opinion, you have to accept it carte blanche, but it does give a different perspective and gives that, variety of exposure, so to speak.
No, love it. We are in agreement in that topic.
Yeah. And I think just a few more quick thoughts on that one. I think you were touching on it when you were talking about people just thinking about in terms of themselves, maybe, and not the other. A nuanced kind of dotted line to that, I think, is some people have a hard time giving up control. And it's like, as a leader, there's a lot of extremely rewarding things about leadership, but there are some things that you give up when you move into leadership. And one is, when you're an individual contributor, in general, you have much more control over your success, right? Because based on your activity, now granted, there could be other factors, but in general, it's that as a leader, depending on how many people you have reporting to you, your success is based on each of those individual people's success and then the collective group success. And you have much more risk, right? Because when you have more people, there's variance. Some people do great, some people will be solid, some people will do poor. When you're an individual contributor, it's just you. So whether you're great, solid, or poor, you look in the mirror most of the time and ladder of accountability. We talked about that, and,
Mhm.
and growth mindset, and have a candid look, positive or constructive. But I think the other thing is, when it comes to delegation, and I'm curious about your thoughts, I think sometimes people are afraid to have people fail. And part of it is because, do they have an environment of psychological safety where people feel they can try things, and if it doesn't work, it's okay. They're not going to get blasted. They can just take the learnings from it and iterate. And the other side is, and it's a positive intent. You can see it with parents sometimes. That's why they give participation trophies, which it's another nail on a chalkboard thing for me. I understand the intent. You want somebody to feel included and feel like they're a part of the team. And even if the team performance or individual performance was subpar, hey, you get recognition for, at least showing up. But that's not how life rewards anybody, in my experience.
Nope.
You don't get participation trophies in life. And sometimes I think, like, parents do this sometimes, and I think leaders do this sometimes. They're trying to put the people in a bubble, and they're like, oh, we don't want them to fail. We don't want them to skin their knee. We don't want them to have a bad experience. And I understand, like, you don't want somebody to have a bad experience. But going back, and we talked about this with feedback last week, it's also about the paradigm and how you view it. If you view it as it's a 100% negative thing, in which very few things fit that description, then yeah, I can see why you want to put them in a bubble and maybe not delegate or overprotect or micromanage or over-engineer. But if you view it as this is an opportunity for them to grow, and it's not necessarily about the mistake, assuming the mistake isn't so critical that it would cause a massive business impact, but it's more of an opportunity for them to grow and learn, and you nurture that, completely different. And I think sometimes, again, what's the old saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like, sometimes people try to create this uncluttered, no obstacle path for people to progress. And actually that's inhibiting their progression.
Yeah. And I don't know any organization, any businesses, any leaders who have been through painless road.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep that in mind when you coach teams or people in your team, that they need to go through that road. Even though you are there to maybe help them navigate things easier, let them fail unless you are a surgeon. But otherwise, let them fail, learn from those failures, and then move on, because they're going to learn a lot faster from their own failure than whatever stories you can tell them about what you experience yourself. And again, it comes to the same thing that I was trying to explain earlier. As a leader, try to avoid thinking about you. Think about your people. And you mentioned something very strong when the control piece. Let go of control. Let go of your ego, because that's also something important. And if you have ambition and you want to grow in your own company, or if you are in a corporate company, a corporate America, who higher you go, who more you need to leave control behind, because you have less and less control. At the end of the day, the people who are talking to the client are the people who are talking to the clients. And you can grow from first line manager, second line manager, director, VP, GVP, MVP, whatever comes after. You are further and further away from people who are actually interacting with your clients. So if you are a control freak, how are you going to handle the different layers in between?
Right.
And so same. And the same for the ego, of course. If you want to be the reason why everybody succeed, everybody fail.
Mm-hmm.
And you will be the one who will drop from the highest part of the ladder. So that's very important to keep that in mind. And we are not robots. I'm guilty. You probably guilty on some point as well, to not be 100% great about keeping your ego aside, or you try to be more present for your team. And it's not that you're not present for your team, but I believe wholeheartedly in the power of delegation, because why in an organization you have a CEO, a CIO, a CFO, a head of infrastructure, a head of VP, operation. they cannot do everything. So you need to spread the knowledge across, because one person cannot handle or know everything about everything. It's the same in your business, it's the same in your organization. So trust that some other people have a better understanding or a better coaching methodology than you have.
Oh yeah, 100%. So attract great talent. You retain great talent by having them professionally grow and develop, and letting them have those learning opportunities, and empower them. And you'll find you'll have much better results. So definitely cheers to that, for that resolution. Nice one. So to summarize, resolution number 1 winners this year: be a more effective delegator as a leader. All right. Next one.
I mean, I will start so I can give you the floor, because it's yours. But I could have taken that one. So for those who didn't remember, beginning of the call, the beginning of the recording, we were talking about the ability to schedule, better scheduling your calls. Like, don't have as much call in your calendar,
or meetings,
on meetings that inhibit you to actually work with your teams. So, Will, you have the floor.
Thank you, my friend. For those of you who know me, who are listening, you know this is one of my taboo things about having less internal meetings. And it's not because there aren't important things to share, but I do believe very strongly in the more you can remain congruent with, are you enabling your people based on their role to do what their highest and best use is? So Nick and I are part of a large organization that has a large client success group. For the individual contributors, their highest and best use are delighting our clients. For our leaders, it's coaching and developing our people. If there's a lot of fluff in the calendar that doesn't map to one of those two things based on the person's role, that's less efficiency. That's less effectiveness. And then it becomes, I would categorize myself as someone who's a bit of a behavioralist. I believe in that kind of study of work. And when you think about how people learn, everyone learns differently, but typically meetings have a similar format for the most part and may not be as effective. And I think where I'm going with this is, you have to consider, based on the type of organization you want to foster in the culture that it's a part of and the group that you're leading, is the meeting to inform, or is the meeting to problem solve or brainstorm? And the reason why I put them in those two broad categories is, if the meeting is to inform and it's a one-way communication, so I'm the leader, I'm going to communicate XYZ over the course of 30 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours, whatever. If it's a one-way dialogue, my argument is, more often than not, that could be done in a different format than a live meeting. You could do a video recording, and that would also force you to be a little more concise and tight with your messaging. But do a video recording, send it out. Could it be an email? Could it be a meeting in the box type thing that you provide and have the leaders just distill it? A lot of different ideas to do it. But that, to me, is one of the more least effective meetings. And one thing I did this year much better, and I'm going to build upon it next year even more so, is when we're having live meetings, it's an active dialogue with the people who are in that meeting. And that way you get brainstorming, you get diversity of thought, you can have constructive banter and debate on different things, so you make better decisions. Because as a leader, one of the things we have to protect against at all times is bias. It's human nature to have bias. I have my paradigm of the view of the world. I'm going to look at things from a certain lens. That's not always the best way to look at things. And so you need diversity of thought, but you got to have an opportunity for people to voice that. You can't just sit back and word vomit on them all day and then expect to get diversity of thought and different ideas. So I think, if you are going to have internal meetings, Are they more brainstorming oriented or solution oriented or feedback oriented, or is it a one-way informational type meeting? I would challenge our winners, our listeners, if it's a one-way informational type meeting, limit or eliminate those and find different formats in which you can distill the information.
Love it. Take notes, winners, because it's really powerful. And I've had the chance to work with Will in the same department a few years back. And you introduced that video format, which in the beginning it was like,
what is this?
Yeah, what is he trying to do? But it's so much more powerful because we listen to something for 10 minutes that normally would be 30 to 45 minutes if you do it in a normal setting, because you want to then having more slides or more visual that you don't need now. You just send a message. The only thing I would add of what you said, you mentioned if it's a one-way kind of communication, communicate another way, video, email, or whatever it's best for your organization. Then you said anything was to do with brainstorming or back and forth or things like that you do in a live settings. I would also challenge a lot of leaders with different organizations to think about updates. How many time do you have in your organization a weekly or bi-weekly, monthly meeting to just update initiatives? I'm struggling with that. You want to give an update to everybody about something. Why you don't send it on a video like Will mentioned, or on an email? And if you have people who need some additional information, they can reply to that. And if there is a large amount of people who have questions based on those updates, then set up a meeting based on the feedback. Hey, X amount of people reply and need more information about this, so it's probably relevant for most of you guys. Let's schedule 30 minutes to go over this. And then it's becoming, like you mentioned, it's becoming something back and forth. It's a Q&A with like some more information coming up. But I do believe that when in leadership, not in individual contributor, when you need cadences.
Sure.
I don't believe strongly in cadences, a lot of cadences in the leadership level, other than the coaching aspect of your people. Coaching is priority number one. So you need to talk to them. You need to challenge them. You need to develop them. Same you with your leader. You need that piece because it's the coaching piece. So I'm not talking about that aspect. But anything other than that, I would strongly encourage organization to focus on strong message by video or an email, and only schedule something on when there is a large amount of people who are asking the same kind of questions. So you can have one communication by a live meeting who will be handling all those objections or all those questions, and we can move forward with that. I think it's going to be a lot more powerful than to schedule every week, every 2 weeks, every month, a meeting that will be there just to update, and you will have 2-3 same people who will be vocal, because in every organization you have 2-3 people who like to hear themselves. Yeah. And then, but the rest is just they are double tasking. They are just doing a bunch of other things, and we all do that.
Yeah.
So I'm not pointing finger at anything or anyone. Is we all do that. So why having the need to have those calls when 80% of the people on the call are not paying 100% attention?
Yeah.
And that's literally my message. And that's what I try to do in my region, to always make sure to have concise, short term, and not strict cadences on different things other than coaching, developing. That's always there.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
No, I love that you added that. And I want to share a quick story and a quick button, and then get your closing thoughts. Quick story, something I tried as well the first time this past year and looking to build upon it. Jeff Bezos and Amazon. You know the way that he does his team meetings? He actually writes a memo, sends it to them, say a week in advance of the meeting, like a 6-page memo, and will list things like the why, the what's the objective, some ideas on steps. And he expects them to read and reflect that memo. And then when they come to the meeting, there's an active discussion. And I think I tried that this year on a couple of occasions. It put more pressure on me because I had to have more clarity of thought and typing it out and putting some things in. and then shared it with the team in advance, and then we discussed. But it did seem to foster a more action-oriented dialogue when we did get together, because you didn't have to set the context. The context was already set previously. So if our winners, you want to learn more about that, just put Jeff Bezos memo Amazon. You'll probably find the same article that I did that talked about it, and try to adopt it. But that's another thing that I'm looking to do, so that when we do have live meetings, there's really productive time spent and either resolutions or clear actions, owners, and timelines coming out of that meeting to make it more productive use of time. And then I think the other thing, just on the behavioral piece, and for our winners, especially those in leadership positions, it's human nature to think about and act in accordance of how you get your feeling of importance. And I think sometimes when people get into leadership positions, they feel like if they're not telling, if they're not always instructing or informing or talking, that they feel like they're not doing their job. And that couldn't be further from the truth in many cases. I think sometimes, a lot of times actually, less is more. Again, you cultivate great talent, you attract great talent, you cultivate great talent, let them cook, like let them go. If you have to get your feeling of importance to feel like you're word vomiting them to death, and that's why they're successful, you're probably not going to have sustained long-term success, because you're probably not going to be able to retain your top talent. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to go elsewhere and things like that. And it's human nature. And that was something that personally I had to mature with, because sometimes you get a little bit of imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, I have this leadership position. I'm supposed to be all knowing. I'm supposed to be XYZ. Let me bestow my nuggets of knowledge. No, less is more. Attract great talent, cultivate great talent, let them go. And you mentioned the ego. Take a step back, take a breath. You don't need to be all things to all people in order for the organization to be successful.
Drop the mic. I don't need to add anything else, but it's not about you.
Right.
It's about them.
Yeah.
And as long as you do that, you will get a lot more back. Yeah. Trust me, you will get a lot more back than if you try to be the person, the reason why everything works well.
Yeah, 100%. So resolution number 2, have less internal meetings or use diversity of your approach with meetings to make them more effective. Cheers to that.
There we go.
So our winners, our listeners, thank you again for tuning in for 2 for the Win. Please spread the word. Make sure to subscribe, share, and follow. Thank you for this inaugural year for us and kicking us off in 2024. Had a lot of momentum, 40 episodes in 3 months? Mm-hmm. Not a bad deal. And we're looking to bring more in 2025. So please share your thoughts, feedbacks, and support. Much gratitude for all of you. Thank you to Nick Menard and Associates with Dream Vacations for sponsoring today's episode. And hope however you decide to bring in the new year, you're safe and you're surrounded by loved ones. So thanks, winners, and we'll see you on New Year's Day with Wanderlust Wednesday.
All right, winners.